Anyways, on a different note, though, BDG's dead. So where's that? Here we go. So BDG disbanding. I haven't read this yet. I'll probably read it on stream. It's definitely sad. Definitely, it's sad. But in my mind, like, I feel like BDG's been disbanded for a while. Like, it hasn't been disbanded, but, like, they've kind of not given up the world first stuff. Like going into this last race, they lost a ton of players, and I was surprised they didn't die before this last raid. Because they had to just replace so many people, and I mean, there was just no... Like, there's no reason to do this many hours and make this many characters if you're not realistically going to compete. It was clear before this raid to, like, people who know that that wasn't going to happen. But then they just kept pushing, and they just kept pushing on. And it kind of seemed like it was something that couldn't figure itself out. Like, you either have to... I'll probably talk more about this later, but you have to, like, go back to your old hours, but you can't just keep... It's the definition of insanity, right? Like, you're just doing it over and over again, and so how is it going to change? JB said BDG quitting was a long time coming. Yeah, I mean, I haven't read the message yet, but I could tell you the same thing. Like, it wasn't a surprise. Like, you start doing the Race to World First stuff, you gain some momentum, you do pretty well. They did it pretty well in a couple of those raids, but it's been going downhill for a bit, and part of it wasn't their fault. So, there was one specific raid where they were still signed under Golden Guardians, and they were making some money, which does help you retain some players. And then I know that they got a bunch of European players one tier. It was some recent tier. I don't know exactly which one it was. But then those players joined, and they, like, lost that sponsorship. So these players made characters on NA, and then they had no way to pay them. And then they had some... Word on the street was they had, like, a deal with... I think it was Cloud9 or some other org had, like, agreed to something with them, and then I think that just fell through. So then, like, you lose any funding, and then players are used to that, and then they lost all of those EU players after that raid was over, and then it just seemed like they had to replace so many people that they weren't ever going to, like, realistically compete. And then at that point, it was like, okay, this is not looking good, right? Because, I mean, it's a risk, right? Like, when BDG was out initially, they were a really, really good, I want to say they were, like, a 3 or a 4 day a week guild, maybe 5 days, but they were a late night guild. So, like, they got all the players that wanted to raid late night, and they had a good roster, and they weren't they were the best guild at what they did, right? Like, there's value in being instant dollars versus being our guild, right? Instant dollars is a great guild, but what they can do is they can get all of the best players in this region that can't raid Race World first times, right? So, like, they have a market that we don't offer. So BDG kind of had something similar before. BDG was kind of like the old ID, kind of. And then they went for Race World first, and then now immediately you throw out that niche. And now you are competing with players that you're rating our times in NA. So you're competing with every player we're competing with, and they're just going to choose us instead of you, right? So, like, now it's way harder to get good players. You alienate some of the players you've had. I think they kept most of them, but... you know, you probably lose some players, and then you can't ever go back to that. Like, that's one thing that people who haven't gone for World First don't realize, is once you do this, there is, for a lot of people, there is no, like, going back to rating lower hours, at least as a guild. Like, as a guild, how would that ever... It would never happen, you know? It's just weird. Once you do this, you just want to always do it. So BDG couldn't really go back to their old hours, because then they just wouldn't even have the players that got them to that point, because they're already gone at this point. And then no one who's signed up to go for World First wants to raid 5 hours a night, 3 hours a day, right? So dying is kind of the only option. Honestly, I'm surprised that... I know maybe it sounds fucked up. I don't think so, actually, saying it in my head. Like, I'm surprised this didn't happen early. Like, I think this probably could have happened before this last year. Like, it didn't really make sense why they were doing this tier. Like, going into it, it was obvious they weren't going to be their same selves. And if that's the case, why make the characters? Why put in the effort? It was almost like they needed someone to be like, hey, what are we doing here? You know? Do you think the same result is kind of inevitable for Method? That depends. So, like, if this happens for a couple more years... the thing is, it's not just... Okay, so, like, it wasn't just... When you mention Method, you're mentioning, like, teams that are putting in all the effort for World First, but doesn't look like they're realistically competing for it, right? That's been the case for Method and BDG. That wasn't everything that happened to BDG. BDG also, like, lost a ton of players. Method, as far as I can tell, is retaining a decent amount of their players, which is good. Which means they have some funding. BDG lost their funding. That matters. Sucks, that's part of it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, if you guys were to put a bet into chat over all the Race World First in the next 5 years, is it like, what would any of you guys bet any reasonable amount of money, right, that the winner of one of those races is not Echo or Liquid? It'd be really unlikely, right? Just from what you've seen so far. But people obviously have hope for it. Method certainly thinks they can. That's right. So I don't know if this will eventually happen. I don't know. Method seems really confident, right? BDG didn't ever seem really confident. I don't know if that's necessarily the same. 5 years is a while. Yeah, 5 years is like as long as the Race to World First has been out now, but then just again. Could definitely happen, I think. 5 years is what? 5 races? 5 years is like 8 races. So right now you get about 1.5 raids in expansion on average over a long period of time. Most expansions or most years are 2. But going forward, actually, this year there was 3. Wasn't there 3 in like the calendar year of 2023? No, it wasn't. No, well, not the calendar year, but I think from November to November there was 3, wasn't there? I want to say there was, or like really, really close. Yeah, there's 3 in the first year of Dragonflight. But now there's going to be 6-month expansions, or 18-month expansions. So what you'll probably get is that same 3 raids within a year, and then there'll just be a 6 to 8 month period for. Actually, there'll probably be more raids now than ever. If any, like just going off of what they're saying they're going to do, I would say it's likely that we're going to probably get more raids over a 2-year stretch because of the way the expansions are being pushed out. The only thing that might lack is quality. Because, like, if Blizzard's saying, like, hey, we're going to put out these expansions with the World Soul Saga, they're going to be a little bit faster. We're going to have them done by 2030 or 2028 or whatever the fuck they said. They're probably not going to miss on that. I bet they will routinely get these expansions out in the amount of time they're saying they will. The only thing that you'd be worried about is whether the quality will dip with them trying to do that much. That's all. What is it? Isn't BDG similar to Fat Shark Yes in regards to a less intense schedule? No, that's instant dollars. BDG is like full Race to World First, raid all day, every day situation, yeah. Which is like, from their position, it used to kind of be like Echo and Liquid, and then there was BDG and Method. And I think, and even before that, there was Pieces, but like BDG and Method were really, really close competitors for a few tiers. And then recently, Method has like risen above that. Or BDG has fallen below that. I don't know which one is more accurate. But like there's now a clear gap between Method and BDG. And if you're going for World First and you're not even in that second tier of guild, you know, like it's kind of like a what are we doing kind of thing. It's to people in the scene, this is not surprising. And I would say it's sad for sure, but it's not surprising. And I'm not surprised. I'm surprised it didn't happen earlier. All right, let's read this. All right, here we go. Okay, as some of you may have noticed, we haven't really done anything since our kill 2 months ago. Some of this time has been a break, some for considering which direction to go in the future, and some it has just been me dragging my feet. Who's writing this? Lozy, the GM. Okay. After putting a little over 9 years of my life into running this guild, I'm announcing the disbanding of BDG as a hardcore. Oh, okay. So they're not actually, they're disbanding it as a like going hard guild. I wonder if they're gonna go back to the old shit, because like I said before, they were like the best guild in this region at something before they did the race. Like they decided to move up and test themselves in the race, but before that I forget their hours. I know they were super late night, and I want to say they were 5 days a week, but like they were the best at that, and they were constantly like way better than other guilds. So I wonder if they're gonna try to go back to that. A couple of the bigger reasons for this that all kind of work together. Decline in leadership, both in quality and quantity. Okay, this has mostly been a recent problem, but I definitely don't feel the same level of desire I did back in the Castle Sanctum days when I was excited to do work. It's not fair to say that raiding became an obligation for me, but the passion and desire was gone. It's fair. I could have done better. Couple that with having to change out basically my entire officer team twice in the past year, business partner stepping away, and a high amount of stress and anxiety I've been feeling since Castle. I'm left with little motivation to continue this other than inertia. It doesn't feel right for me to give my guys anything short of my best. So that's fair, also putting it on himself, but I have heard this as well. So not from Lozy specifically. I don't know a lot about him, but I know that their officer core has been turned upside down a few times, and I know that like when we had gotten players, it's been like, you know, they didn't really know in the officers what they were doing and stuff like that. So I think that makes a bit of sense. I don't know about Lozy specifically, but So I mean that'll do it for most guilds, right? Like leadership is super important. But like, what can you do if like you have good officers, but then all of them quit, and then there's no one to replace them? Like that's very possible. You could have a group of 20 people and not have a great amount of people to replace them, right? Like you have to have respect for your officers. They have to actually like want to put in work. That those people are not always there, right? Losing core players each tier either to retirement or burnout, or taking offers from the top 3 as they should. Have BDG players? This is probably mostly us, and I think a few went to Echo. I think how many was there a big pipeline going from BDG to Method specifically? I know there's a few. Not like a wild amount, but a good amount. Okay, we probably took the most. What someone should do. This probably wouldn't look good for me, but when Pieces died, Pieces released a spreadsheet of all of their players from the last couple tiers, and they color-coded them with what guild like which way they ended up leaving the guild. It was like, went to Echo, went to Liquid. It was Limit at the time. No, it was Liquid at the time when they died. And went other places. But actually, I mean, that didn't even look bad for us, because like Echo turbo farmed Pieces. Like that was hey, hands are up. That wasn't me, right? But if they were gonna show a BDG one, we didn't recruit from them for a long time. We got like Mavie and Evade like a long time ago, and then there wasn't any for a very long time, and then we started getting a lot from them. Like I want to say maybe even close to like 7 or 8 players or something. Regardless of the quality of their replacements, the process slowed us down and created a sense of perpetual rebuild. That this if you wonder why there isn't more guilds realistically competing in the race, it is this exact thing. Regardless of the quality of their replacements, the process slowed us down and created a sense of perpetual rebuild that gave the guilds something of an identity crisis. I want you all to think about this in your own guild right now, okay? Think of your best players. Think about recruiting a player recently that became one of your best players. All right, now imagine, I know you guys aren't competing in the race, but just try to wrap your head around this. You've seen your guild get better over time. Now imagine after every single tier, your top 2 or 3 players get recruited to another guild every time. They don't stay. Every single time they get recruited. That, not only is that going to make it harder to get better, but dude, that is like, you would just, it's deflating. You lose confidence. It's lame as fuck. You're constantly getting used, and it just feels like you're going nowhere, right? Now imagine if you were actually trying to compete, like it matters to you to compete. You have literally sponsors that are paying you that expect success, right? Or at least growth. And you're just dealing, I mean, this guy, Lizzie said he had a bunch of stress and anxiety. I can't imagine how much stress and anxiety he was feeling. Well, I mean, I've felt similar things, but like, just imagine having the stress of this money being given to all your players and support and the need to compete, and then feeling like you have no chance because of that and having to push through it anyway. I mean, it's must be exhausting, demoralizing, all that stuff. Anyone who's been here for even a year knows what I mean, and it sucks. This isn't just something most core raiders on the roster want to do again for the 3rd time. Makes sense. Loss of sponsorship has a lot to do with the above points as well. This mostly ties into the first point of us not doing enough internally to secure our future. Okay. But pretty obviously, the scene requires money that doesn't exist here anymore. It makes it hard for anyone to justify the time commitment outside of extreme passion, which frankly speaking, most people lose out in about 2 tiers. So the writing on the wall was kind of obvious for a while. So let's talk about like where the sponsorship came from. And obviously it does suck that this happened. But the sponsorship happened when Method is everything in the race world first. And then Complexity buys another WoW team. Everyone's like, wow, that's kind of crazy. I didn't expect that to be a thing. The race world first is fun to watch, but now we're getting some more money into it. That's cool. And then we won our first 2 races with Complexity. So every other org is looking at this viewership in the race, and they're like, wait, so you're telling me you can just pick up a team and then they can win and get a piece of that pie, and it's like the most value shit ever? So these orgs all got super interested because of that, right? When at the time, I mean, this is obviously, this is what's happened, but like someone who's paid close attention to the race could be like, yeah, you could pick up all these teams you want, but Echo or Limit is going to win. So like you're paying for that, but like I don't know if the race is ever going to blossom into something where more people are realistically competing for all the reasons we talked about already. So you knew that yes, they're going to support these guilds. And actually think GG was pretty good with BDG. They gave them years. Like, they didn't expect them to win right away. Like, they wanted to see progress, and they initially were progressing really well, right? But, like, eventually that has to result in cutting into that pie of viewership, which is advertising is how we make all of our money. So, which also means money, right? Like, if you look at the Race World First right now, and you're not counting embedded viewers, this is how many viewers are in the race. And, like, this is how many, the part that I'm coloring in, I guess, red here, this is how many viewers are watching Liquid and Echo streams. If another team won, right, and it's, like, more competitive, then, like, hold up, we can start cutting this into a bigger slice. Maybe it's way less, right? Like, maybe now this is the viewership for one of those teams. This is what these orgs actually want. That's where all the money is. That's where all the value is. But that never happened. So if that doesn't happen, that's what you got into the business initially for. It's eventually going to run out. So if you're talking about the stress and anxiety thing, this is probably weighing on this dude every day, right? Super hard to do. And those orgs kind of were going to fall off eventually, unless they were able to win. And also, they kind of got screwed here. I don't know if it's screwed because, like, you could argue if they just had more value, they would have been able to succeed or get a deal. But in my opinion, the moment when it was obvious to a lot of people that BDG was probably not going to continue doing this was when they lost the GG sponsorship right after a bunch of EU players joined. And then, like, they lost the sponsorship after they joined. So they joined with the expectation of money, and then they lost money, right? And then they had a deal, I believe it was with Cloud9. That was, like, word on the street, not entirely sure, to, like, get another deal so they could keep going, but that just didn't happen. Then they lost all those players who were expecting that money, and then they basically 2 tiers in a row had, like, I want to say, like, 10 to 15 new players or something, just a massive difference. That wasn't going to be able to continue. So a lot of this isn't on them. It's just kind of like the way that this works, and it does suck. Like, honestly, the Race to World First having money be a thing is cringe. Having fans helping you in splits, I don't know if they're going to mention that later, is cringe. Like, having it all be about viewership and stuff is cringe. 100%. Like, that's all true, right? We benefit from a lot of those things, but that doesn't mean that it's not true, right? That does suck for the guilds that are trailing and trying to grow. So, yep, a lot of this isn't their fault too. Okay, as for what happened this tier, what actually did happen this tier, I completely forgot. I don't know where they ranked at all. I know it, like, was not good. Yeah, so but I think at a certain point, I think they, like, stopped rating or something, or maybe that was in Aberrus. It was one of them. At one of them, they just stopped rating for a bit, I think. But they also had, like, a couple of bosses where it was real rough, I think. Does it show the amount of pulls? So, like, this was their first Smolderon kill, right? It took them, is this correct, where it took them 242 pulls to kill Smolderon? Like, that's insane. Like, that's when you know it was over, right? So, like, I think maybe after this they took some time off. Isn't that guy? Oh yeah, that's the 220. I mean, either way, it's, you know, you get the point. Yeah, that was the kill where that guy was absolutely torqued when they killed it. I didn't check Tindril. Oh my god. Yeah. So they were going through it this year, right? As we were talking about before. They're going through it. Let's see. As we've been rebuild, this tier is going to be rough. Yeah, it was a rebuild tier, yeah. I thought Aberrus was going to be a rough rebuilding tier with all the stuff we endured post-Vault. Handful of players leaving a month before the tier, but we somehow pulled a world fourth out of that. It seemed like it was feasible to match that performance or at least get close, so that's where the expectation got set. After we realized we were not playing up to the standard early Smolderon, that kind of set us on a path that spiraled down into poor play. Oh my god, yeah. I can't imagine. Dude, imagine you get all these people to join with the aspirations of world first or at least competing with it. And then, like, you're doing Smolderon, watching us kill Tindril, and you're taking 5 times as long on Smolderon. But then you're still, when the raid ends, and you're like, man, this sucks, right? Like, you guys all know that feeling. You guys have had a bad raid night. Maybe people were in a bad mood, not feeling it. And then you're like, okay, well, our next raid is on, like, Saturday, like 4 days from now or something. So we're chilling. Like, I'll see you guys on Saturday, whatever. We'll have a better day. All right, now imagine that raid ends, and you're looking at your calendar, and you're like, oh, so we're sleeping for 8 hours and just doing this all day tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. I mean, their entire raid must have been in absolute agony over that, right? And you guys could probably relate to that. And then you just have to stop at some point because it's like people, I mean, you're not going to kill any hard boss with your raid feeling like that, right? Especially like imagine killing Tindral. Imagine killing Progression. That's what they did. Like you guys wonder why this took 800 pulls. They're not that bad. I bet for almost all of this, if not all of this, they were in the worst mood of their life. They've never been in a worse mood. Some of them could have gotten divorced before and been in a better mood than they were doing these 800 pulls, right? All 20 of them. So like, I mean, you're never going to kill a boss that hard. And with you being that in the dumps, for sure. Let's see. I do want to express my sincerest gratitude for everyone who has been through this guild, all 295 of you. How many players have been through... Yo, can someone... No, someone would have... A viewer couldn't do it. Someone in our guild who's had access to all of our spreadsheets, someone should find out how many players have been in Limit. Because we only formed at the end of Blackrock Foundry. So, like, it was basically Legion through now. It's not a lot, though. We have kept a ton of, like, I think, like, more than half of our guild has been here for, like, 4 or 5 years or something. Race World First experience is too valuable. I do want to express my sincerest gratitude for everyone who has been through this guild, which also makes me just, I want to point out again how crazy it is, and people do this. Guys, when you are lying about your resume to get into a WoW guild, just say you raided in some other top guild that isn't so easily verifiable as saying that you used to be a raider in Liquid. Guys, it's so easy. Someone can just message me and I'll just tell them no. Like, I would know. Like, it's so crazy that you would do that. Okay, it happens more than you think. Let's see, all 295 of you. If I've learned anything in the past 2 months of not really playing WoW, same. It's the people that I miss the most, more so than the game. Ultimately, you all are what made this feel special. Feel free to DM me if you want to talk about the old days, high points, or low points. Oh my god, dude. When it's like, I don't even know how many years from now, and we're all dead and gone, we don't like play WoW anymore. The Race World First is Ogre, all that stuff. Dude, just sitting down in Discord with the boys and just like reminiscing and going back, especially we have a meme vault channel. You're not allowed to type any words in there. It's only like funny screenshots and videos and shit. Like, oh, that would be just the best content ever. So yeah, I hope they do get to do that, because I bet they have had a lot of high points that they want to reminisce about. Anything from the US 200 days in early WoD or one of our insane world first, Vectis, Desolate Host. Okay, they did actually have an insane world first on Desolate Host though. So going into Desolate Host, we actually thought that boss would be kind of hard. We were still doing Mistress, and I think they went to Desolate Host before Mistress, after Sisters of the Moon. I think you could do that. And they like 3-tanked it and did this crazy strat and killed it really, really fast. Also, shout out their strat on Battle to Zarlor, Dead Guy, you go underground, King Rosticon. So if you guys remember the strat on King Rosticon where everyone like the range stand on the wall and you made that little like house around them so that none of the orbs hit them and they could just stand there and cast, that wasn't our strat. We killed the boss before them, but we did like a full melee downstairs, play the game. It was an old-fashioned, as limit as it gets strat, like where just ignore everything and just like play the game and it's fine. And then they killed it after us, but their strat was so good that like the strat that everyone knows and everyone did after that was theirs. So yeah, they had a sick strat there. We ended up copying that in farm. There was another BDG strat that was really sick. So they said Fated Sire. Oh, they did do Fated Sire. Vectis, cool boss. Really interesting how every boss in Old Year was the most melee unfriendly raid of all. Like the total opposite of current raids, but Vectis and every boss in there just made melee hate their lives. Oh yeah, Zanesh kinda, yeah. Let's see, fun games of League or Tabletop or any of the Race World First we took part in, or just to catch up. I'd be happy to talk to all of you and wish you great success in life. Oh, that's sweet. I'd also like to shout out all the officers and leadership that have been in this project with me. I think you are all some of the best gaming friends I've made, and a lot of you have challenged me and pushed me to be a better person, better leader. I'll always be thankful for that. There's going to be a few too many people to list here, but from the early days of the US 200th with Glade, Daubs, Comfy, and Bubba. Yo, Bubba, shout out. Dude, Bubba's so smart. To our nightly era with Mavie, Wits, Cherry Vodka, and Dark Bard. Ooh, Mavie, shout out. And Cherry Vodka, shout out. I haven't heard of him in a while, but I think he was actually really huge for their guild. Like he was a good player, but I think he was a respected voice, and I think was really good for them. I think when they lost him, and I don't remember exactly when that was not good. There's people like that in every guild, but I think he was one of them for him. To our most recent area with Dubsy, Dark Furion, Shampy, Impact, Hyper, Sloot, Maple, FTM, Crystal, Wolf, Zoe, and Flawless. I want to thank you, just the whole guild. I want to thank you all for your work and sacrifices you put into making this guild a place I will never forget. Let's see. Dude, I hope he has a paragraph where he's like, all right, I want to do some shout outs to some fucking bitches. And then he just lays down the gauntlet and lets people know what's up. Because every guild's got some bitches, you know? I always want to extend a huge thank you to all the people we worked with at Golden Guardians. Hunter, Spellsy, Danan, and Johnny, to name a few. You all truly enabled my dream of participating in the race. I'm not sure if I ever promptly thank you for that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there is. Dude, shout out all the people in the race who people don't know them. And they do like hella shit behind the scenes. Okay. Let's see. To my analyst team this tier, Choice, Doro, John, and they got 4 analysts? I very much appreciate all the work you did behind the scenes, prepping and after/before hours to keep me in the raid. Scared to think where we would have been without this instant week or support or all the late night AUG TCing, theory crafting, data. Sorry, I don't know why that blew my mind. Data mining or anything else. I hope you can all find another home in the scene if you want. Don't be strangers. Lastly, I want to thank everyone in the community, particularly people tuned to our streams, helps us with crafting splits, participate in our charity events. Dude, crazy that they were able to fill their splits. Honestly, like that's one of the most bullshit parts of the race that I hate so much is like the streams, the guilds that are not Echo or us in our regions have to pay more than us significantly to get less helpers. Oh my God. Everything about splits is so cringe, but like, just imagine that. Like, just imagine knowing you would have to pay, like even Echo, it was either last year or this year. They didn't pay anything. They just did like this raffle. So they spent like 5% of the amount they normally would. And it was smart, right? Like if you're a fan, maybe you're not happy, but like it was smart because they still filled all their runs. They knew they didn't have to pay like Method did. They could just get people to show up because they have more fans, right? So yeah, I don't know. All that shit is so cringe for sure. Let's see. And as for myself, I haven't committed to a future direction yet, in-game or out-of-game. I still think there's a lot of passion for me in this gaming community. I just need a few months to figure out after redlining it for 3 years straight. Maybe I'll be a part of the race world first elsewhere. Maybe I'll reform with some friends in Chiller and Nighttime Guild for expansion. Any X-Raiders that made it this far, hit me up. Yep, sad, dude. Sad. Yeah, man. 07s for them. Max, thoughts on the BDGG Guardian strat? Oh, that was another one. So I saw that. I don't think it was good though. So they solo tanked it, right? That was the thing. So it was like Pog because it was a solo tank, but I don't think that made them kill the boss any faster. So the boss was just too easy to have that be a thing. Like I don't remember how long it took them to kill. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass here, but I feel like they probably took longer to kill it solo tanking instead of just like pulling the boss and killing it. Like you didn't need damage or anything. You just needed to live to the end and have people not die. But maybe they just like one-shot it. I don't remember. Dude, analysts are so interesting in the race. Like, I actually mean this. And I think Echo realized this tier by having Roger go outside the raid. When Roger's like a fucking beast player too, right? I think Mirez said this. Or maybe it was Scripe. And they're right. It is significantly harder to find someone to be of use outside the raid than it is to find players that are good enough to play inside the raid. And I think he's exactly right. Like, you can recruit as many analysts as you want, but, like 95% of them aren't going to fucking do anything because they don't, like, they're not, what are you expecting them to do? They don't have the experience. Like, you basically need people who have played, that have gone through this problem-solving process a million times to be of value like that. There's been so few, like, analyst-y type people, and we have a few great ones that are, like, to actually find people that are really, really good at that. What is it? Roger goes outside raid, BM immediately becomes best. Dude, the funniest thing about Roger going outside the raid is like they had hunters prepared in case BM was good. But do you guys remember the first like couple days of this patch when BM was like bugged because of some log fix they did for augmentation? And they were doing like actually 25% more single target than the next best class? Dude, I remember Scribe saying after the raid that like he was like talking to Roger like, dude, I think you might have to raid. Like both of our guilds were going to play, I mean, probably an infinite amount of hunters. Like you would have not brought raid buffs to bring hunters. Like, that's how strong they were. BDG fell apart without Sloot. I mean, I think Sloot... I mean, well, I know Sloot. We hung out at BlizzCon and stuff. We've known each other for a long time. Some rough patches and mostly good patches. But If I'm gonna guess, I think Sloop probably saw the writing on the wall. I'm sure he also was at like a breaking point with it, but like, I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people in BDG were sitting there for a while like, the fuck's going on here? like what are we, like, you have to, right? You have to just be saying like, what are we doing at a certain point? And a lot of it wasn't their fault, but I mean, I'm sure even Lozy was like, you know, why are we putting in this amount of time and effort to like, for what, you know? Max, who are you poaching? Any prospects from this for you? I mean, anyone we were interested in BDG before they died, we would have reached out to already. Scott does most of our recruiting. I don't, as far as I know, I don't think so. Is Boomy the only new player for this tier? Is Boomy the only person we've picked up so far in farm? I think so. Scott does everything. Scott is a super officer right now. Scott, all of our officers for sure, but Scott does so much work in farm, especially when I am less available. He's a fucking beast. Are you not scared he's gonna get burnt out? It's always a possibility, like Mirez. I don't know. I mean, yeah, Mirez does so much too. I mean, it's always a possibility. I mean, I know that feeling, right? Like, when we first made this guild, I was when I got to lead the guild, like, I was raid leading full time, I was recruiting, I was making splits every single week, I was in every raid, I was literally everything. Like, I did everything, right? And that was insane, and I had to delegate some of those tasks. In fact, I think I was a bad guild leader initially. Mostly, I mean, maybe some of this could be chalked up to just needing to learn and being in that position. But, like, by trying to do too much on your own and not allowing other people and trusting other people to do it, you're just going to drive yourself crazy, and you have to, like, have trust in smart people and have them do the thing, and then just let them fucking do it and just back off and trust them. Because it's annoying for them to have you constantly looking over their shoulder, even if you want to be in charge of stuff. And you just have to, yeah, let them fuck it up, get better at it, stuff like that. Now I think we're in a really good spot with that. Who is Boomy? Boomy is really a really interesting recruit. So I don't think he's played WoW for very long. He played in Vodka as a tank for this tier. His name is Boomy, but he doesn't play a Boomy. I think he just plays like a bunch of shit. But we don't need a tank. He's like a really good, I want to say Brawlhalla player. Like, he's like a fucking goat in another game. He's really young. I want to say he's like 19 or something, maybe 20. And yeah, I don't know. We basically got the most insane vouchers for this guy that I've ever seen. Really, like, I don't think anyone has been vouched for like this. Like, basically everyone in Vodka was like, this dude is fucking nuts, and he's eventually going to be in your guild, so you should just recruit him. Because we don't need a tank. We just recruited him, and we were just like, I don't know, we'll figure out something for you to play, and he's been really good so far. Obviously, you have no way to tell if someone is sick until PTR or progression, but did you approach him, or did he approach you? Dude, I want to say this, and this is going to sound crazy. Scott would know for sure, but I want to say people in Vodka reached out to us about him before we looked into him or before he looked into us. Someone from Vodka was like, you have to recruit this guy. Which, like, never happens, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Is Yips not a better DPS than Tank, or has he gotten too good? Oh, are you... I have no idea what the fuck you just typed, actually, but I'm going to try to interpret it as, why not have Boomy tank and have Yips just play DPS again, is kind of what you were getting at. But yeah, I mean that's always an option. Like, Yips could just play a few DPS classes. The thing is Yips is a really, really good progression tank, and those are about as hard to find as anything else in World First Rating. So I don't think you risk, like, even if this Boomy guy seems great, you can't just risk that. It's way too important. Like, I know Yips is a sick damn doer, but I don't know. You just finding insane tanks is way too hard. Like, the only thing that would make me not want to have Yips tank, I mean, it would matter what he wanted to do too. We asked him. We were like, dude, like, you know, we have some options at tank. You know, like Ben's been floating around coming back for the expansion, so it's like, what do you want to do? And he's like, oh, I actually like tanking. I prefer to tank. So if he prefers to tank and he's doing this well, you just have him do that, because Ben would also prefer to DPS. So yeah, that all kind of adds up.